Welcome, friends of the channel. This is the Marauders for Dice Never Lie. I'd like to welcome you to an episode we have today of essentially how we start off a solo player mission here in the world of Tolis. It is largely improvisational, starting with kind of an open form conversation where we just have a little bit of give and take kind of feeling for where a player sits in the city and kind of what are the things that are currently high on their mindset, high priority things that they would like to explore and experience. And today we'll be checking that out with a player, Vabuza, as they look into some of the conditions that are existing around the Twin Star Marauders Guild and some of the things that are the highest priorities for their character, Vabuza. So thank you very much for all of you new and old for tuning in. I'd like to welcome you if you are new to the channel. We play tabletop RPGs under the Open Gaming License 1.0a. We are a big fan of the things that used to be known as Dungeons and Dragons.
Staying at the guild and probably giving like a gold or so to the leader just so he has a place to stay instead of spending like a load of gold on living in a hotel.
So you are welcome to subtract however much gold you want to spend staying at the guild, but in the long run, you do not have to actually expend anything. Part of what the Crooked Skinner is, and part of what the Twin Star Marauders are, is effectively a safe haven for anyone who joins the overall mission. So there's no reason for you to expend anything beyond what you would like. You can certainly donate to the guild if you would like, though. But this is normally where your decided or whatever you think of as your cost of living kind of comes into play. It's often overlooked when people are creating their characters how much you intend, how nicely you intend to kind of go about your day to day life and how you live. But that's kind of how much money you expend, just day to day kind of thing. And there is a certain amount of that. Let me look real quick to see when the last time Vabuza was in a game. So the last I've got you playing was right before Christmas, 12/23. So we're talking probably about 3 weeks have kind of passed that you've been inside of the Skinner. So this is one of those things. Right now, you don't necessarily have a whole lot of downtime that you necessarily would have been doing things, but it does come up to the question of what are kind of those things that you would be doing in the city. And this is part of why sometimes playing a solo mission takes quite a while just to get started, because it is where we really focus on this stuff. This is where you can get a lot more stuff done. Uh, the poorer you are, the less you can do it, because a lot of things require you expend money. Creating poisons requires you expend a good bit of gold along the way, but it is one of those options that you have. So, among the things that you think you would be doing, I would also point out that at this point, I've not gotten you and Eugene back in the same game together, and the two of you were the ones who saved that little chest that you couldn't open. So, what I can do is one of the things is we'll have you downtime inside of the guild, basically negotiate for that. Have somebody open it for you and basically get paid from the guild for those items. There's a certain level of they can offer you the actual items back, but generally speaking, there's going to be a cost to have somebody from the guild do that work for you, and then the guild will buy those items off of you to sell at a premium versus giving them to you and not necessarily having the money to make. But it's kind of a gray area there. So that's one thing that I think you should do during your downtime. And doing it towards the start of it might also give you some gold for expenditures, and you can imagine how you might spend those over the 3 weeks that have kind of passed between where we're going to pick up with you and where you last left off.
Yeah, that's understandable. So, obviously, the probably one of the last times that I would have seen Eugene, we probably would have been talking about this kind of thing, and we would probably come to a decision to pay someone to open it and give them probably at least 5 gold to try and prize it open.
So, inside of the guild, Zeneth would probably be the most adept at opening such things. So if you kind of ask around and speak with Maybell, again, you guys have plenty of time that you would have met and actually spoken with her. But she's one of those characters who's perhaps a little bit more silent at times, often playing cards. But Maybell, if not Kalimtas, could certainly point you in her direction as effectively their greatest lockpick here. And I can certainly open your case for you for 5 gold. It's not necessary that you two pay me, but the guild can take a fee from you from whatever valuables are inside, and I can be paid through there. If you would care to tip me beyond that, I have no qualms with that. But the two of you need not pay me for the service itself unless you so desired. And she'll take out like a small roll of of leather and kind of roll it out, and you'll see just this array of different metal implements, a bunch with different kind of like bends at the end, tiny little like small little picks, and some of them come to almost needle tip points. Some of them are very like flat. Some of them almost have kind of like a lightning zigzag to them. Some of them kind of have like two different points at the end, a bunch of different kind of variety of these. Some kind of made of what looks like steel, some kind of made of what looks like copper, some that look quite like crafty, and some that look like a piece of metal that was hit with a hammer 3 times. There's a lot of variance to her picks, and she'll kind of like take this large box, set it on the table in front of her, take a few moments to investigate the lock. And one of the things that I am moving towards as we step further and further away from D&D Beyond is getting rid of proficiency as a given. And that's where I want to offer proficiency dice to people on something that you would do. Normally, you get to choose for yourself, but I'm about to have you roll for one of my characters, so I'm just going to tell you roll her proficiency die when you go to do this roll. But for your sake, when you go to make a roll for Vabuza, right now you're level 1. Your proficiency die, if you look at your character sheet, your proficiency is a +2. It's in that top right of your character. You see it right next to your walking speed and your charisma.
Yeah, I got it.
So whatever your proficiency is, when you roll something that you are proficient in, that is already included. What we are going to be doing towards the future, if you would like to follow suit, you are welcome to, is negate those things and roll an actual die to represent the extra variance of you're proficient, but sometimes you do better, sometimes you do worse. So with a proficiency of 2, your die is a d4. When your proficiency goes up to a 3, your die is a d6. When it goes up to a 4, a d8, and so on. Effectively to, I think d12 is the highest that they go to with a +6 proficiency. But regardless, you are always looking at, with the die roll, a better than half chance. It is technically like your proficiency .5 is the averaged from the die roll. So it averages as a better choice to take the die, but it's up to you whether you do it. In the long run, though, once you make the choice, I want you to stick with that. So you can test it if you would like, but effectively, right now, I would like you to roll a d20 and a d4 for me and see how Zeneth does first an inspection of this lock to see if she can find any traps within. Excellent. There does not seem to be any traps within. And I will now let me please have a D20 and a D4 once again. So she's going to kind of struggle for a moment as she kind of like feels a few of the tumblers, and you can kind of hear as she's like putting pressure, and there's like a little bit of like a slip and kind of a click, and you just kind of hear this, and she just like gets frustrated, readjusts the pick, gets frustrated again, kind of like a little sigh, and it happens like two or three times before you hear as she like and there's a much louder kind of click. I need you to now roll a d20 and a d4 once again for me, as a needle stabs out from within the case and stabs into her hand. That's a good one to roll high on. So she's going to instantly get kind of pierced through with this needle into the palm of her hand. And as it like scrapes into her, you can kind of see a little bit of like a viscous, like dark black, almost like purplish green liquid that kind of like drips out on the side of her skin. And she's got a little bit of like leather across that part of her hand, and she just kind of like investigates it for a moment, like just looking at it. Well, appears it was indeed trapped, but I don't believe it pierced through the leathers of my glove.
If
And
if I
so then,
may, let me look at your hand, and I will tell you if it is or not.
you can roll a investigation, but if you would like, and this is where I will offer it up to you, you can have proficiency with this. So if you don't want to fuck with the proficiency die, you're welcome to have a +3. If you want to try out the proficiency die, it's a d20 plus a d4, and you've got a +1 in investigation. So looking it over, this is a pretty typical alchemical poison here, which is effectively the very most basic kind of potion of poison that you have. What you can basically tell here is that this is one of those things where there's a lot of common poisons that are very common materials that you might use in day to day life, come across on a regular basis, and a lot of those things are what make the common poisons. So this is the type of thing like maybe it's something like, say, I don't know, I'm gonna make something up here, like tar and bleach kind of boiled together to make a very concentrated like caustic material that you can't quite wipe off. And if it pierces inside of your system and you get this like bleach into your blood, it slowly just poisons you over time. But it's just as much that you could tell me what it is. But it's effectively like the type of thing where like common household chemicals, common things that you might come across. Uh, like one of my favorite flowers is foxglove, and it's poisonous. It's that kind of thing where it's like something that is all around you in life, but we also know is poisonous.
Right. Yeah.
But when she opens up the case, there are going to be four different vials. Each of these vials seems to be, let's see, four different vials. Two of them are kind of like a dark red liquid that seems to be kind of like free flowing with a little bit of legs, kind of where it sticks to the glass. Two of the vials are a little bit darker of a red that almost seem to stick kind of viscously to the glass. One of them is a like whitish pink vial. My bad. So total of six vials. Two red, two dark red, one kind of a whitish pink, and then another one of them is almost like a golden clear liquid. All of the other ones are opaque, and the golden clear liquid, kind of like when you shake it a little bit, almost gets like a little bit of like yellow kind of orange. And then, other than those 6 vials inside of this case, the case is almost designed to hold these vials. The other, like, half of the case is filled with a kind of silver yellowish golden. We'll go for coin at this point. But you basically can kind of see like there's probably 24 or so, 20, 30 of these kind of goldish, silverish coins.
I pick up the vials and begin to examine them to see if I can identify any of them, see if I can recognize them.
You can do another investigation check here and roll again a d20 and a d4. Looking over them, you've got a solid understanding that there's um, 2 healing potions and 2 poison potions. Um, the pink one, you're relatively sure should be something like an antitoxin, but you can't quite identify what the last one is, the clear one. But other than that, I think at this point, um, we'll probably have this is where I need you to roll a D100 to see what the guild will pay you for this. Because again, theoretically, they are going to try to sell the proceeds of this box to make a profit. We can pay you 50 gold a piece for this, and you all can keep the um, electrum pieces for yourselves. The guild will not take a portion of those. We can make our profit from the potions.
That seems fair enough to me. Now, while we are talking, were you or anyone else in the guild able to identify anything in the notebook that we also brought along with us back with the box?
Zenith can call over to Tindeus. Tindeus, they've got this notebook here. It seems to be written by your kind.
Be very
Uh,
careful. It untouched falls apart. By the way,
well, I don't have much that I can do that can prevent such things from furthering damage to this. But I could spend some time attempting to do so and see what can be found in the long. I would not, and he's just kind of like looking over the burnt qualities of the book. I would not hold out that the book has much to offer. It seems pretty well consumed by the fire.
that was my first impression. But then I got to thinking, it could be a notebook on the medicines or person that lived there before, or and other things. But if you could not, uh, how do I say this? Keep it from getting decayed, then it is no problem. It just might have been helpful to myself or to the guild. If it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out.
I will see what I can find, and in time, we can find out what, if anything, it has to offer us. Otherwise, if I can prevent its damage any further, I will most certainly do so. There's no reason to sacrifice it for nothing at all.
No, no, there is not. That was my first. It may okay, be nothing. It may just be a personal diary, but at the end of the day, it still might be worth something to someone.
So you can take your 50 gold from that. I'm going to add 50 gold to Eugene for his part there. And then you can take, what is Electrum? It's like 1.5. 1 gold is 2 Electrum. So, okay, no, it's half a gold. So you can basically write it down as 15 gold apiece. No, that's wrong. It's 4 gold apiece, I think. I think that's what we'll go for. It's 4 gold apiece.
How many did we have for the electrum?
15. We'll pretend it was 16, so it splits up easy. Yeah. So you guys can take a total of 54 gold from within that, basically. So that's just kind of one of the days in the interim time here. Among some of the things that kind of goes on in this time, um, next few weeks, do you have any thoughts about what you would be up to over the next few weeks with like the coin in your pocket? Are you just kind of laying low, looking for kind of opportunities as they arise? Is there any thoughts about what you're doing inside of the city?
Uh, Probably more than likely, I would have gone out of the city with a probably a backpack, a tent, and a sleeping bag to get proficient in using my crossbow and my dagger that I have. Probably also trying to build up some muscle mass after not being able to do much for the past 3 weeks.
Gotcha. So yeah, you can certainly spend plenty of time as you see fit, kind of going around and getting some time to practice with your different weapons. You can certainly find plenty of space to do like body mass workouts. Solid way to spend your time for free, and you can certainly go about doing those things. Have we ever determined, is Vabuza, do you actually have citizenship papers for the realm? Are you a member of the Imperial world?
I believe he would have because obviously he would have had to come through the main gates and would have had to apply before we would have been able to enter.
Gotcha. I think we determined also, like, we had you come from like a nearby but smaller town, right?
Village. It was a smaller village.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I mean, though. Yeah. So, your paperwork checks out. You can certainly come and go with little fanfare here. You might make a point of not necessarily. Um, well, let me actually ask you that. Do you make a point of coming and going like from the same gate? So you're always kind of trying to like see the same guards, or do you make a point of trying to come and go from different gates so you never see the same guards? There is effectively, I think, 8 gates to the city, but 4 of them are the largest kind of like main gates that things happen with. The market gate and then the north gate are the two biggest. They each enter through the north market and the south market, respectively. The South Gate and then the Gilders Gate are the next two largest. The other ones kind of have like a little bit of privacy to them, in that you start to get into like the wealthy and the elite. But what kind of thoughts do you have? Like the closest gate is the Gilders Gate to leave the city, and it's just heading south there. I think the way things might have played out, I don't know if we ever determined like where you came from, whether you were north or south. But like if you're kind of going for the closest like copse of woods, it doesn't really matter. I would say on some level it's close enough to Tolis that it's in that you don't have to go and like really like venture for a while. But kind of up to you. What gate do you think you go from? Do you try to make yourself known? Do you try to keep yourself unknown?
I'd probably go for the Gilder's Gate.
Gotcha, it's just the closest one. And do you try to like meet a guard, or you just try to pass through Gray Man, just be unnoticeable, unremarkable?
Mm. I'd probably be begin with friendly to try and expedite to get through without a hassle. You know, try to be friendly, but at the same time wanting to try and get through and get things done.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, next big amount of your time, you can certainly kind of start to make these rounds out of the actual city itself. Try to move in and out with little enough fanfare, so you just kind of blend in as if any other citizen. You'll find that it will tend to be easy and seamless to get out of the city. It is often probably about like 3 to 4 times as long to get back into the city. But one of the advantages of the Gilder's Gate is that it tends to have a lot less traffic than the other gates. A lot of what you deal with at the Gilder's Gate, though, is merchants who are bringing vast quantities of something into the city. So there's a lot less people, but a lot more items and goods kind of coming in. So you can often find that when you're coming back, though it takes time still to get through, you can often almost like skip the line just by kind of like walking up towards the front and having nothing really to declare. You also can kind of get fast paced through, as a lot of what's coming through is, say, like hunters who have like 50 or 100 deer skins, and you've got the guards actually going through and checking that they're not smuggling something in, and then somebody who's coming in with like 50 heads of cattle and things like that, where it's people who are like bringing like thousands of pounds of ore in to smelt down into steel. um, and it's almost like you can skip over these lines just by being yourself and having nothing to it. You just kind of like walk forward. You might have to show your sword, kind of like almost showing like, look, no blood, that kind of thing. Like, I haven't murdered anybody recently here. And you're just kind of like wave through the gate. Quick little look at your paperwork. They're not even, you can pretty much tell like they're looking at your paperwork, not even really giving it a second glance, maybe not even finding where your name is, just kind of like looking that it seems all kosher, and then just wave you on through. Uh, but couple of your weeks kind of go by with this, like just kind of mundane, sticking with it. There's occasions where you see some of the guild kind of coming and going, but there is going to be a point where a rather significant kind of happening in the actual warrens goes down, where at some point somebody starts a fire to the east of the Crooked Skinner. My bad. To the west, northwest of the Crooked Skinner, and burns out a large portion of the area where the actual Skinner is. And this is one of those things where, for a lot of reasons, it's just kind of a normal happening. Uh, it is one of the few times that you have people of the Warrens kind of band together in a fire brigade of sorts. The Warrens is the Warrens is among the most dangerous places to have a fire happen, because it can easily spread to and burn down the entire place because of how mismatched and just ramshackle everything is here, where houses are built on top of houses, built on top of houses, built on top of houses. There's very few things here. The Skinner is one of the few like clearly like designed kind of like normal structure that's built in Warrens. And this is just one of those random things that kind of happens in day to day life. There's a fire in the area. When everything is kind of under control and you all are able to assess some of what has happened here, and the guild kind of returns inside of the Skinner to have some ale, to nurse some of your wounds and kind of recognize what's gone down here, that's where part of the talk is going to go to. It feels a lot like the Crooked Skinner was in the center of that fire, and it feels a lot like a great bit of luck that the actual building itself was not burnt down. And it's going to be one of those moments where there's kind of a recognition that if somebody has a problem with us, they kind of just showed their hand. And it's kind of one of those recognitions where you guys already have enough to know the Pale Dogs in general claim the Warrens as theirs. You're not necessarily welcome in this, and finding a fire that's all too close to home is a pretty solid reminder that you guys are in a hostile place. And that probably takes us to where there's about like a week left. I think Actually, I think that was 2 weeks ago that that kind of happened. But it still kind of falls into this idea where, yeah, it was the New Year's that the guild was attacked like that. Um, so last week is where you guys then have like a week after that. You guys then have one of the members of the guild actually return with a more clearly delineated threat of war slash offer of peace. And what it effectively comes down to is you guys leave or we'll continue this coming from the Pale Dogs. And among the threat is effectively the idea that one of your guild members, Dalton, who is missing, presumed captured and enslaved at this point, uh, is indeed somebody who Davros is looking for his son, somebody who you all could trade, get rid of, and vacate the Crooked Skinner, and the Pale Dogs will return Davros's son Dalton to you all. Uh, deny it, and you may never be able to find Dalton again. And deny it, and you will certainly find the Pale Dogs are a more evident enemy day by day. What kind of thoughts do you have as to kind of like these last weeks of those things kind of going down with the Pale Dogs?
Um, More than likely, it would be how can we trust the Pale Dogs? Like, how can we trust their word?
Effectively, the agreement that Davros has gained is that um, the mouth of Girath, the person he spoke to, was going to come back in 2 days and have a discussion here with Kalimtas and Davros about what he found. That's actually part of what we will be doing on Monday, is the return of the mouth to have that conversation. Uh, when he comes back, then he's going to simply report on what he finds about Dalton, and that is where he basically will require from you all what plans that you have to vacate this location. And then from then, in 2 days, he'll come back when he can tell you he does indeed have Dalton prepared and he's ready for you all to vacate this place. And then 2 days from that, he will return. You guys will leave this place and he will give you Dalton in exchange. But it is effectively, this is somebody who says, you have no reason to trust me, just like I have no reason to trust you. If you want somebody to trust, this is not the place for it. The Warrens is a place of death. If you want to trust anything, trust that we have no worries about killing you and we have no worries about dying.
I think one of the thoughts going through Zob's head would be, trying to save Davros' son because of how that is his one of his main goals. And as a guild, as a group, we set to try and help him in that task. And I think it comes to the point of, do we leave the Skinner, and relocate the guild to another part of the city? Of how hard is it going to be to move the guild and relocate it?
One of the things that kind of includes like this idea, again, this is part of what Monday is going to actually be about. So it's not too much of a worry now. This is vastly Justin's storyline with his characters. And this is part of why I say you guys can create, like, tell me what you want to do. And it's basically saying, like, I want to focus on this. So in the long run, it has to do with the guild, but it's also, this is effectively his storyline too. But part of what this is simply Kalimtas starting the guild here is simply where the guild started. It does not mean that we have to remain here. We have shown our mettle, and it is probably true that we do not belong in such a hopeless place. But it does not mean that we cannot also help the Warrens. But acquiring a location is minor details. If we give up this place, I cannot offer free housing to those who require it. That will change things. But we can also find our way into staying in the worst places around the city. There will always still be the penny rests and other cheap places that we can sleep. There will always be each other to guard one's back. And I think it's most important that we know the guild does not reside only in a building. It is we ourselves who make it what it is. The choices we make day to day, and he'll like put an arm around Davros. The choices we make to stand up for our guild mates and hold them as the highest importance above our own well-being. And part of this is like at this point, you're probably still at the point where one of the guildmates, Mukhtar, died fighting beside Davros when they went out looking for the Pale Dogs to ask them questions about Dalton. They found Pale Dogs, killed a few, and lost Mukhtar in the battle. And it was only at the end of that battle that Davros met what is effectively the mouth of Jiraith, this man who speaks for the leader of the Pale Dogs. So Mukhtar is like inside of the guild as Kalimtas is like saying this to Davros. And we will give our lives for our friends, knowing that they would give theirs for us first. And that's just kind of to say, like, it's that classic. This is something that military veterans on a regular basis hold in kind of the highest esteem is that recognition of brotherhood that changes everything when you recognize that when the person beside you would give their life to save yours and you would give your life to save theirs, that's something that is beyond measure. It's beyond words. It's beyond comprehension. Um, and Kalimtas is effectively saying, this is what the guild is. And making the right choice to save people like Fawn. And he'll bring up another one of the women that Dalton actually saved in the city from some of the rat men. I wish I had her name offhand. Kalijin. And he'll bring up Kalijin as well, who Davros like just met recently, in kind of going around questioning for these pale dogs. But effectively, that's kind of what the guild sort of like characteristically is thinking. The other thing, though, is as well, hopefully, if we're able to restore our little house in the North Market to livable condition. It is currently unowned, and there's many people who are not willing to even enter it. It may be possible that the guild can purchase this, and we can relocate to a far less dangerous neighborhood, where everyone is in a much better state.
The only thing that would cross my mind about moving to that little house is making a deal with the goblins. Now, we could easily say to them that, you can stay down there as long as you want. And all you have to do is, wait till late at night to come out to do what you need to do. Or, we will keep this back room closed for you. However, if you need something, Maybell or myself, we would have food for you, water, and there'll be all sorts in there. We're trying to get them to leave. Maybe a little bit of challenge, because they may have been there for some time.
We are already behoved to do so. We have made our promises to the homeowners association of that area, and our friend Elric, I feel like that was the wrong name for him. Erel. Our friend Erel has already paid us. So we have to do something about the goblins regardless. But the decisions that we make certainly do matter. We do not have to harm the goblins, nor do we have to give them peaceful terms. But we should make some deciding factor, and that is only one possibility. There are many places that we could potentially go to, and again, the guild does not have to have a place that we call home.
Well,
If
wouldn't it,
necessary, there's
wouldn't it,
also always. What are you thinking?
wouldn't it also be a wise idea to have multiple guilds for your business? Now, I'm not saying it may be the brightest idea or the smartest, but if you have get that small house as a guild, and then another place as a guild that may be bigger or smaller, somewhere that someone can go that is either closer and they don't have to walk entering from where they go to. The kind of thing that if they have to go to the rich area, they can easily go to, Marches or the Warren, somewhere that is close by that they don't have to walk all the way and spend like a 40-minute walk to get there, kind of thing. Like I know it would be a lot of gold to acquire such buildings, but in the long run, wouldn't it also be beneficial?
We have to start small and do what we can, but that is part of what the guild collects from all of your ventures for, is such things as feeding, housing, preparing drink, but having safe houses in the different locations around the city is definitely a part of what we desire. If we cannot take over this house that the locals consider haunted, I wonder if the docks are not the next best choice, where we could get another um Jared the DM can't think of the word for storage facility. Um
Warehouse,
Warehouse, yeah. Where we could get another warehouse like
barn,
this, because this place is effectively like almost like a sheep, uh like like where they shave the fur,
a, sh-
the
a barn, basically.
yeah, yeah. This place is effectively a barn, but like the docks district is filled with warehouses. Midtown has plenty of warehouses. And then one of the other things that he's thinking is that the Undercity is a place where the Delvers Guild is trying to create another district of the city. So there are places that you can get underground in like the Delvers, the Undercity. That's another of those options. Those are all cheaper places to go to, and those are all viable options. In the long run, one of the things that I want to get people towards is one, you guys get to choose. In the long run, Kalimtas is effectively your NPC to decide what he does with stuff. So that's why people get to like kind of focus the attention of what the guild does. There's things that will happen over time. It is inevitable while you guys live in the Warrens that things only get worse and worse with the Pale Dogs. That's just one of those things about what's going on in the Warrens. Anywhere you go, you might have other things that kind of happen around it, simply because of that's what like the politics of that area are. But that's one of those things to kind of keep in mind with um, there are plenty of places and plenty of options that you guys have. One of the first choices is probably, yeah, trying to get another location that is a barn or a place like that house that is effectively has a nature to it that a lot of people don't want to buy it. Those are great choices to go to.
And I
But
would
having multiple safe houses, I 100% do recommend slash support.
then I think it would be a wise idea to at least try and see if we can acquire any kind of building before we agree to anything. Like, if we cannot agree, then what is the point of even leaving? Like, if we have to leave and we do not have somewhere for the guild, then what would be the point? Like, we with the guild would have to stop, and there'd be no work for any of us. Now,
We can find work regardless of whether we have a business to conduct it from or a
yes,
location to conduct it from.
yes, very much so, but the fact that you may possibly lose your business does not sit well with me, even though we may gain Davros' son back. You know, a life is still a life, and a business is a life. You have put a lot of work and a lot of energy into bringing this up. It is pretty much a baby at this point in terms of a lifespan. You know, it it has a meaning. You know, it is a place. Everybody considers it home, and to just up and leave because someone is threatening us, and the threat is very real, and I know what the pale dogs can do, but you got to remember they are only children.
The dangers of getting rid of this place outweigh the benefits of staying here. It has been clear for some time. As you well know, the fire was a clear enough message sent to us. I have other properties throughout the city that I've already benefited from ownership and my partner with Dalton in particular. To say at this point that his life is not worth this location, I would never put forth. I would trade this place in a moment for Dalton, were it my choice. And with his father beside me, I can say I believe this is the right choice for the guild. So not necessarily terribly well known, but Kalimtas effectively bought the land where Dalton used to live inside of the Guildsman district. He does not own a building, but he owns the land where some apartments basically are. And in part, what he bought was a entryway into the Undercity, or rather, particularly into like the sewers slash um, the Bane Warrens. And that's one of the places where everything kind of started is Dem going underground, Dalton going underground, and finding a location that leads into the Bane Warrens. But it just kind of goes back to this building doesn't matter. Getting rid of this to get the guild out of the Warrens is not a big deal. It will leave the guild without a building to conduct business from. And that's one of those differences of like, you guys can meet in a pub, but it's not going to be a pub that's filled with guild members. It's going to be a pub that's filled with people. So things will change on certain levels around things like that until another location is acquired. But in the long run, the more you guys actually do stuff as a group and go deeper into the actual places where things are there to be found, there's massive amounts of money to be taken in a place like this. It won't take long before you guys can afford a nice enough place with the guild to have a location again. It's just one of those things where, um, on some level, it's already in motion that Dalton is being prospectively traded for this location.
Then I suggest that we do some looking around to see if we could find anything, even if it is going back to that house and seeing what we can do to get that one. If not, then it is looking for something a little bit easier to take or to buy from someone. As you know that the warehouse near that fire that was broken down, you know, that might, it'll become, but again, that is in the Warrens. So it's again, it's now to the Warrens. But if the guild fails to get out to the Warrens is the best option, then I will stand by the guild because this is family, and to save Bolton is precious life to have. But the the thing that gets me the most is that we are trusting someone that we know very little about, and that could easily stab us in the back and use him for something else when we go to this meeting. But if we are trading and we are leaving, then I suggest that the first thing we do is try to find somewhere, or at least make it look like we are making an effort to find somewhere.
I think where this kind of falls is this is still things that are essentially this is the whole idea of what we're doing on Monday. Um, I think you're getting kind of caught on some of those things on some level. Uh, on a nearer level, you could certainly do something that is effectively like going around, like looking for real estate. I don't think that's an entertaining session to play out. It's one of those things where I generally say, like, adventuring is the fun stuff. So if you want to do something to help, I would say this is where you can look to the guild, pick one of the other guild members who you want to like take down into the sewers and try to kill rats for gold. And it's one of those things where there's always the potential of making a good bit of chunk of change. That's one thing to kind of keep in mind. You find anything that's remotely rare or magical, you can often sell it for quite a bit of coin, just kind of going into the underground areas. It's part of how effectively, at this point, Dem and Davros have kind of struck it kind of rich, uh, going into the right places and killing the right shit. Um, so that's one thing to keep in mind is that on some level, going out and doing adventurous things like that is one of the potentials. Otherwise, I feel like there's a solid sense to just say, you're a little bit more caught up on what has happened and a little bit more prepared for what Monday is kind of all about. Um, on another level, I think there's kind of the recognition that the Pale Dogs run the Warrens, and this is a hopeless place. I think part of why we should leave this place is the same reason that the Pale Dogs do not welcome us here. We help, and this place is by design abandoned to be hopeless. And to me, looking at things from a holistic picture, it tells me that it is by design well beyond the scope of this mouth of Giraith. Whoever Giraith is who leads these pale dogs, it is hard to imagine that this person does so of their own accord. Malchin has tracked them through the Vi, and the Vi are well-known assassins in this entire city. And if you wanted to, you could roll a history to see what you know about the Vi. I think you guys kind of came across a little bit of info about the Vi, um, but the desire is perhaps greater. Ugh. I am worried that this is a systemic problem, and that to stay here is to doom us to failure. That they are children is makes them dangerous, as many people are not willing to hurt them, and they are willing to kill us.
Then I think that it is a wise idea to leave then, because As stated, some of the guild may not feel that they want to kill children, and that is understandable. And it is then just trying to find somewhere to have the guild meetings in order for us to continue this business and to keep helping people. I think that it is a wise idea to do the exchange to in order to get out of the war rooms.
So we're roughly around that hour point at this point. Do you actually want to go do something and like start what is potentially like a little bit of exploration underground, or do you just want to kind of chill out for now and pick up on this with Monday when we go into the Goblin House?
Yeah, I'll pick up Monday. If that's fine with you.
Sounds good. I mean, again, this is kind of like where this is kind of the feeler of how a solo mission ends up working out. It's by and large not something where you're um, doing big things. Even at higher levels, it ends up being a lot more of kind of like an individual investigation kind of session, the way like one-on-one play tends to be. There's certainly an amount of you can go and explore and potentially get into combats, but it is one of those things where it's almost always trying to do stuff with the recognition of how dangerous doing stuff alone is. And even with any of the sidekicks, like part of how Makar died was simply one hit, one wrong hit, and all of a sudden that sidekick's dead and you're solo again. So they're great to have around for some level of like balancing action economy, but they don't necessarily like mean that they're equal to having another player around with you. Um, but it's one of those things. Solo missions can be a lot of fun. They are quite often entertaining. So when you have the opportunity and you do want to play, they do present some cool options, but it's one of those things that it's just kind of gets better as you get like higher and higher levels anyways. um but like exploring the underground, killing rats for it's like 3 gold a piece, so you go in there with a sidekick and it's a gold and a half a piece. Killing rats is a solid way to kind of bank money, and it's one of those things where effectively if you can find your way into like a ratman nest and actually killing ratmen, you very quickly start to have access to some of the like golden treasures of the Bane Warrens. And that's where, like a good lucky investigation roll is all of a sudden finding something that's worth like 500 or a couple of thousand gold. Like Davros found an armor that was basically worth like 2,500 gold.
All right, got you. Yeah, yeah, I'm happy to pick up Monday, or at least do another hour or two tomorrow solo.
Well, if you want to join in, Malchin and myself, we are going to be playing a session. It'll be a full session, so it's not just going to be a short guy. But Malchin and myself are playing at 8 o'clock your times. Because
Got
he
you.
is in, I'm going to say this wrong, Sweden. I think, yeah, Sweden's right.
So you'll be on till three.
It's basically like 8 to midnight for you, I think.
No, it's a little. If, obviously, eight. If it's 3 hour session, then it'll be 11 o'clock.
Well, no, I tend for 4 hour sessions, but I say give or take an hour. 3 hours is usually the shortest, which realistically comes out to usually like 3.5 hours. Because often like the time startup time is just one thing. But generally speaking, leave like 3 to 5 hours for a session because I like to play for basically I plan 4 encounters. Most encounters are 45 minutes to an hour of time. If you do everything and you bypass and like just auto win encounters over and over again, that's where all of a sudden I'm just like, yeah, if you're gonna skip over everything to like easy mode win stuff, 3 hours is perfectly fine. We're done. And kind of end things. But most of the time, if everything actually gets played out, it's a solid 4 hour like per session.
Yeah, that's okay. I don't mind. Obviously, I have to jump off at midnight, but I could probably be able to do it, but I'll let you know if I am or if I ain't, because obviously I have to wake up early in the morning Monday.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's definitely where it'll come down to. You know, in the long run too, you can definitely let us know. There's a certain level of, Chris is on that same time schedule, but he works healthcare. So for him, he's used to kind of being on crazy erratic schedules. But it doesn't change the fact that he's going to be tired as fuck by the end of the session. So if we get to a good stopping point and it's when you've got to go, we might just end it there. That's another one of the things. I've had plenty of games where we do stop at a pretty hard 3 hour time limit. It just comes down to, what we're playing for. But most of the time I shoot for 4 hours.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't mind doing 4 hours. It just means I'll have to, just have an extra hour or so in bed.
Sounds good, Ashley. Take it easy. Have a great night here. Be well, and see you potentially tomorrow, but if not, Monday.
Yep. See you tomorrow or Monday. You take care.
Thank you for tuning in today. I have been your Dungeon Master, Marathustra. It's been a pleasure to have you all visit the channel today. Whether you are a player just recapping things for yourself to keep familiar with what's going on in the world of Tolis, or you are someone who is looking for a gaming community or just enjoys listening to the experience, thank you very much for checking us out and our improv style of tabletop RPGs. Thank you all very much. Please don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and if you've got a moment to click the bells and the icons to get everything flowing on the YouTube. Thank you all very much.